Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome along to episode 89 of the Sofa Manager Scottish Football Podcast. And on this week's show, we have a jam-packed feature special. First off, we'll be discussing Snowflake football and the development of the non-contact game. After some incidents, some diving, particularly on the continent, and a particular Livingston striker who upset myself, Paul, at the weekend. Might be related to the kit that's just over my shoulder for the viewers. We will also be talking about the sort of twin paradox. Could twins be switching places in Scottish football? And I think there was a matter of a few Scottish Cup games, one minor, insignificant one that took place on Sunday, which was of course a Bairns Stranraer. So we'll go into great detail about that. And as well, back for the second week in a row, it is the eagerly awaited cage match. Isn't that right, baby Jonathan? Yes?
Yes, looking forward to it.
Good. We are going to face off some of the elite players in Europe who might well actually get the chance to face off on a more regular basis, which we might get to as well. Anyway, joining me this week, it is the most infamous Bruni in Scottish football, John Brown. Hello.
Hello, Paul. How are we?
I'm good. Are you looking forward to the podcast this week?
Yes, very much.
Yes. Did you catch the Falkirk score at the weekend?
Yeah, no, I'm glad I missed it.
Dear, that might also feature as well. And back for, I think, the first virtual appearance, it is Baby Bairn himself. It is Andrew. Hello, Andrew. Did you catch the Falkirk game this weekend?
Yes, I did.
Do you have some unique and exciting opinions on that?
Yes, we don't have a midfield. We have a defence. We have an attack, which we don't use.
Okay, well, we look forward to hearing about that and talk about the M&Ms. And myself, the man who likes to play music for all the town, and that's why they call me Paul Minstrel Menzies. There we go. Anyway, let's get cracked straight on with the episode, shall we? Good. Right, first things first this week. Well, what do we always talk about at the start of podcasts, John?
How you're doing?
No, nobody cares about that. Was the NASCAR on this week is the most important question.
Was it?
I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out at midnight tonight because that's when it starts.
No, great. Okay.
Anyway, we'll start off this week with the first topic I wanted to discuss was Snowflake football. I think we've seen certainly the rise of much softer football in recent times, and this has been brought to my attention by two things. One was a very soft penalty given against Aberdeen in their victorious Scottish Cup fixture of the weekend. J. Emmanuel Thomas appeared to be scuffed by an innocently flailing foot, given as a penalty. Not happy with that. Also, on these Match of the Day podcasts in the last few days, Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer were lambasting Vinnie Jones for being an uncultured footballer. I thought to myself, how dare you? That man's earned more in fantastic films such as Gone in 60 Seconds and
Mean Machine.
Mean Machine. Oh, don't mention Mean Machine, Andrew. No. John will be far too.
It's a fantastic film.
There might be a review due down the line. Who knows? I got halfway through it and gave up. But I thought,
I'm a football fan as well. Right?
You do not need to be a football fan to appreciate Mean Machine. You actually, you're not a movie fan if you appreciate Mean Machine. That's for sure.
It's a rip-off of Longest Yard, or The Longest Yard's a rip-off of that. It's one of them. Don't know which one.
It goes for the back. I think there's a previous film that this is a rip-off as well, and then you could probably tie it back into the one with Sylvester Stallone and Michael Caine, Escape to Victory. I think kind of follows along the same lines as well. So
I think there was an American football one first, which I think was called Mean Machine. I'm not sure. And then there was the soccer, football variant, and then there was the third reiteration with Adam Sandler, which came after the Vinnie Jones, Jason Statham, things like that.
Worth a watch.
Yeah, you put me up a anyway, they showed a Vinnie Jones tackle about 2 minutes into a Liverpool game, and it was sensational. He just completely wiped the boy out, got a yellow card in what would have been received 3 red cards in one go in the modern game. So, do we think football is becoming too soft? And is the day of the hard man gone? Discuss.
Yes. God.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Yeah.
Okay, what? Go.
I mean, let's face it. I mean, football as a sort of sport has completely changed to what it was even 10, 15 years ago. A lot of people kind of claim it's kind of obviously been imported from the continent or into kind of South America. That's their style of play, and it's been adopted by British players. I think it's just an evolution of the sport. I don't think it's necessarily been an import or anything like that. And yeah, I think it's slowly becoming effectively a non-contact sport, or a sport where it has to be immaculately timed because they're so scared of injuries. Which is understandable when you're now paying guys a fortune. You don't want them injured for 6 months because some kind of guy like Vinnie Jones is sort of giving them a double leg break. I'm sure there's a kind of insurance claim to be had in the back of that, and that's the change. And it's a case of whether we accept it or, as kind of fans, we demand more kind of aggressive play to kind of come back into the game. It just depends, obviously, what kind of people want.
What do you think about it, Andrew?
Oh, even if you just look back to like the most recent things, probably corners, because they just keep getting softer and softer. It used to be an absolute wrestle, and if you looked at when Leicester won the league, they got most of their goals from corners, and they used to wrestle with Huth and then Morgan. But you don't, like, even if you try and do that now, it's a straight foul.
Fouls on the keeper these days are really soft as well.
Yeah, but I don't know why that's happened, but it's always been a thing. They're overprotected in a sense.
As soon as you touch a keeper, it's basically a foul, particularly if his feet are off the ground. It's an immediate foul.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with the point, though. I mean, when you look back in that, particularly that Leicester team with kind of Huth and West Morgan, they were kind of big, powerful guys. I don't think even now, we're only a couple of years sort of from that, I think they would get away with it, particularly with VAR analysing every minute detail for every single goal. It kind of rules out any even kind of slight infringement.
Yeah.
See, I think that's my problem these days is we've moved to this sort of moan culture where I honestly don't think 20 years ago, Match of the Day was about decisions in the same way that it is about now. I think easily you can take up 60-70% of the analysis with the analysis of the referee. And I think VAR makes that a lot worse. And I actually think in Scotland, we're not as bad for all of it. I don't think we have as many divers in our game. We don't tend to give as many soft decisions. And I quite like that. It's perhaps not fair and not perfect, but the game never was fair or perfect. And I've saying to Andrew earlier that I like how in other sports there's a sort of way of self-policing things. So, for example, like in NASCAR, if you bump a guy off in the last lap, they're not going to like totally Formula One it, and they're not going to black flag you and say penalty. They're just going to say, I think the phrase is rubbins racing. He hit you, you can hit him next race. That's the deal. In the same way, in ice hockey, you're a big fan of ice hockey, Andrew, aren't you?
Yeah, I like it.
How do they deal with their disagreements in ice hockey?
Well, they just fight. Good old-fashioned way.
Do the referees intervene?
After a certain point when it becomes unsafe, but I can really imagine that in football though, because that would just get out of hand. No, you couldn't. It's been phased out of that, and it will get phased out of this.
I think for football that would be just as bad. I mean, there would be a slight scrap on the park, and then it would just kick off in the stands.
Yeah.
If you're taking like an Aberdeen Rangers game, and you have, let's say, Glenn Kamara going in for a challenge with Lewis Ferguson, there'll be a wee kind of like tiff in the middle of the park. You can guarantee they'll be up chasing each other at that kind of gate along that side stand, which would be fantastic to watch from a distance, but it would very quickly get out of hand.
Yeah, it's probably a bad influence on the watching public. I agree with that. I'm just pointing out other ways it means, but
even with like the 50-50, that used to be an absolute momentum shift, because I think there was one with Falkirk a few years ago. It was Paul Payton, and then Falkirk were rotten, but then he went in for a 50-50. We won the ball, we scored. But that literally changed the full crowd noise. People got up for it, which is not too often in the Falkirk Stadium. And I think you don't get that anymore. Like, even just a 50-50 was exciting. But how often do you get a drop ball?
Exactly right. And even with a drop ball, it's like somebody will concede, and you're just basically kind of giving it to kind of carry on play. The best thing about Paul Payton actually for kind of 50-50 challenges was the pre-season game. I think for that season, it was Folk were playing Aberdeen up in Arbroath, weirdly, and Paul Payton absolutely cleaned out one of the Aberdeen players. Like, the boy was a crumpled wreck in the middle of the park, and he just towered over him to say, "Get it up here." I was like, that kind of got things going a wee bit for a pre-season game. It was fantastic. I can't remember who the player was. He absolutely wiped out.
Well, if it was, I can believe it would be some young lad or something like that. But it proves a point. It's a character. I do actually quite like that in games where, to get the fans G'd up, they'll just leave the foot in on some of the Hibs Hearts games. If you watch the sort of 90s variants of that happened all the time. Like, in the early 5 minutes, they were just kicking lumps out of each other to prove a point. Do you think it's a style of football that then is going to be lost for the good or for the better?
I think in terms of Scottish level, maybe not, but it's getting tamer as it goes. But I think in terms of like England, it's gone, because you used to have your Manchester United, Liverpool, gone. Manchester United, Man City, gone, in my opinion. Liverpool, Everton, sometimes, it depends. There's been times where they have got heated and then it turns into more of an interesting game, but you don't really get that at all with the bigger teams, so like Man United's, Man City's. But
I think certainly the bigger leagues in England, it's become a lot more tamer as they kind of focus on the kind of tactical game, which absolutely doesn't happen up here. The Scottish game is incredibly physical, and I think for a long time it will stay like that, purely because that's the only way we know how to play football and can play football. I think when they're down in England with the amount of kind of money and the quality of player, that is certainly, I think it's a tactical battle, it's your skill, it's your ability, rather than being able to absolutely wipe out your opponent. In saying that though, the lower down the English leagues you get, it does begin to get quite kind of physical. I think that's the difference when you see the teams coming up for the Championship and the Premier League. There is such a wholesale change because it's completely different from what you need in your squad. I think that's why Norwich struggle every time they come up, because they're a very good Championship team, which is just full of Haddies like Grant Hanley, but they're just not technically capable of playing in the Premier League, and that's the big difference. And I would agree. I think in the Premier League, the sort of the times off sort of Roy Keane, Patrick Vieira, they're gone, and I don't think they'll ever come back.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that. As in these generations, I honestly don't think football teams back then were tactically as advanced as the teams are now, and I do think everything's almost overthought, to the point that that's what creates competition and interest, and that's what creates upsets, is players just going out there doing their best, not really knowing that, you're going to do play X, Y, Z, you're going to set up in formation, YTT or whatever, and that's what kind of spice things up. But it looks like some of these bigger teams are perhaps going to be moving further and further away from their roots in the English Premier League and throughout the nation, as it appears that Manchester United and Liverpool have suggested concrete interest in the European Super League, which has been floated about for some time. Basically all the big hitters in Europe. I think the only names I didn't really see were any German teams or Paris Saint-Germain, but your big three Spanish teams, your big three Italian teams, and then the big six English Premier League teams, which I was a bit like, do we really want to include Tottenham in this, guys? Like, do we want to have a think about that?
We've got money.
There's a lot of money. It's a nice stadium as well.
Big stadium. But UEFA have thrown the rag out the pram today. So I wanted to gather your thoughts, because I don't think we've really discussed the European Super League much on the podcast before. What do you think of the potential of losing the top tier European teams to a European Super League? John, we'll start with you.
I don't know a huge amount about the story. I can understand a little bit the kind of premise behind it all, though. So I understand it's either the current or former Juventus sort of chairman or president of that club, I think, is kind of spearheading a lot of it. Luis Figo's involved for some unknown reason, I think, which is very strange. I don't know what the kind of clubs are involved. I kind of thought that a couple of the big Italian teams were against it, But I certainly see some of the statements have kind of came out from the Premier League, the FA, English FA, and the really kind of funny ones being UEFA, talking about enough is enough and everyone should be treated fairly, when they have been hoarding it in for years and years. Absolute shambles coming from them. The only reason they're getting involved is they're panicking because this wipes out the Champions League.
Mm-hmm.
And all the kind of money and all the wealth that comes along with that. So that's why they're panicking and chucking out statements. If the European Super League came under the UEFA banner, that would all go away. And I wouldn't be surprised if that kind of starts to kind of emerge from the dust of all of this.
Aye, they're greedy themselves. They're the worst of the bunch.
They honestly, the only reason I would be for it, and I'm totally against it really, but the only reason I'd be for it is it really gets up UEFA's nose, and I quite like that because they have been shafting European football for decades now, and it's high time someone gave them a taste of their own medicine.
Indeed. Andrew, do you think it would be a big loss to, say, the Champions League or to the English Premier League if these clubs were to leave?
I think it would be a big loss to the Champions League, yes, because you've got like your smaller teams that come up, and then there's sometimes stories about them doing well every year. So I think you'd lose the sort of interest that way. But in terms of the Premiership, I think it'd be interesting because I have a feeling it might have a China effect. So it might be good for a season or two, and then just come crumbling down, and they all come running back. But the question is, the money that's been put into these teams by different companies, is it going to then shifted to be put into teams like Leeds, Everton, and then they'll become the giants of English football? But if they go to the European Super League, is the money going to shift back to the English Premier League? Because again, if you're an English company, you're not exactly going to want to do it all across the world, which is not maybe the most common thing, but
I think the problem there is I can't name you a single major English company that are headline sponsors of any of the big teams.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I totally agree with you in terms of a little bit more competition. We could see the rise of Aston Villa again. These teams now have a hope of actually winning the English Premier League, which is a big deal. Irrespective of whether the big 4 or 5 there, because football is at a point now where I believe it's relatively stagnant, and it is incredibly difficult to break through these big sides now.
Yeah.
Like in France, for example, Monaco had their couple of seasons where they had the measure of PSG, where they got to, did they get to the Champions League final? Semi-final? Semi-final. But again, Mbappe was sold, the lad, I think Mendy went to Man City, it was broken up. Ajax went all the way to the Champions League final. Again, one of the first teams to break that mold in ages. That team was decimated the summer after. And this season it's going to be, either an English side or, PSG or...
You got PSG, Chelsea, Man City, and another.
Madrid?
Yes.
Yeah, Real Madrid, Liverpool.
So there's a bit of a, it's a sort of mafia style thing where, you've got the heads of the different houses, and it's very, very hard to get a seat at that table. So by breaking them off into their own thing, I think as long as it weren't allowed to compete, say these kickoffs are not going to be at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, which I don't believe they would be anyway. This would be evening football probably universally across the board. Again, if you're a fan of these clubs, I know there's been a lot of volatility today, but, do Man United care about the FA Cup? Do Arsenal care about the League Cup? Do, Tottenham really, they're just out for that big European money at the end of the day, really, if we're all honest.
Yeah.
Well, I think for English clubs, the main focus is always, certainly if you're in the Champions League, that is usually your priority. But the Premier League, to actually win the title, is still a big deal. I would agree that certainly the FA Cup and the League Cup are what we would kind of call Diddy trophies in their eyes, and I can understand why maybe they're wanting a bit more kind of bigger competition or have a better chance of winning a European kind of title. So I kind of get it from that perspective. Because obviously this would completely and utterly remove them from the domestic leagues. So chances are they are going to be playing on Saturdays, Sundays, and they'll have their own kind of schedule that is going to compete with the domestic level. again, how much interest realistically is there going to be for that kind of thing? I mean, Old Trafford is 80% full of tourists every other week when you're actually out on the ground. You know, how many Mancunians really kind of care or have even a hope of getting a ticket? And it's going to be even worse if it moves to a European league. You might start to see these kind of challenge clubs start to pop up a little bit more. Like FC United and Manchester and so forth, and stuff like that. So maybe they could come on the rise, and it gives a little bit more openness again to, like you say, like Aston Villa, Leeds, even the kind of some of the clubs that are in the Championship at the moment. You know, Nottingham Forest, Derby County, all historically big teams in England.
Charlton Athletic, even
Charlton Athletic, they should be kind of hoping to kind of be back in the Premier League eventually one day, maybe. Newcastle, you know, like could become one of the kind of biggest teams in England.
No, no danger of that, John.
Well, I don't know. I mean, this is the thing; it eliminates all their kind of competition completely, and you would assume eventually the Old Firm would decide that they want to kind of go and join the ranks of this kind of second tier off the European Super League, because, you know, let's face it, there's 20 other teams in Europe that are bigger than them, as much as they would like to kind of joke about it.
Well,
for the moment, I would put in there the caveat.
I don't know.
I think once money starts coming in, they would go higher and higher.
Oh, if they could get in, they would go for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The problem is they're not obviously of the ilk right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. So they would have to come in at such a kind of a low level to eventually build themselves up. But that opens up the Scottish leagues again to, I was going to say, like, more competition. You're basically looking at Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen winning your league every season rather than Rangers or Celtic.
See, my worry,
like a 3-horse race rather than a 2-horse race.
My worry with that is we eventually go the way of the Welsh League, essentially, and become a complete diddy tournament at that point, because
we're the League of Ireland, but we just play during the winter, like.
Yeah, a little bit. We are fortunately bigger than them at the moment. I don't think Rangers and Celtic are the lifeblood of our league. They're kind of the lifeblood of our league, I suppose. But yeah, I think, you know, if you're actually trying to label clubs that actually pull in 50,000 or 60,000 people a week, there are not many of those in Europe. In terms of merchandising as well, I'm pretty sure Rangers and Celtic will be right up there. And if we maybe got together and nudged Ireland a wee bit, which would be highly controversial, and just said, could we get your European Super League entry as well? If we put ours and yours together, we might get one of the teams in the European Super League. It'd be interesting to see who they chose.
It depends on what bit of Ireland you pick.
I don't know. Well, you could combine them. Why not have...
that's too much an argument like that.
You could have green and blue hoops, John, on the kit. Do you not think that would work?
Are you calling it Derry or Londonderry?
Oh, anyway, before I'm burned in effigies all across the land.
But we already are.
Well, the hope is they never get this far in the podcast. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Again, I do think football's become quite stale from a competitive standpoint. There are only a handful of teams ever in shout with competition, and you look back 30, 40, 50 years ago, there was different dynasty football teams that came through and would maybe win 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, not quite 10 though, in a row, and it would be good to see a little bit more variety. We'll see what comes of this. This will be shuttered at some point. UEFA will come to some sort of compromise. This new Champions League format just looks confusing and nonsense, and I don't think anyone wants that either, so we'll see what happens with that. But we did see Rangers and Celtic playing today. Did you catch the game, John?
Nope.
Oh. Okay, well, great use of your Premier Sports subscription. I did not watch the game either. I think I watched the last 15 minutes, in which I saw Odsonne Edouard throw a pretty mediocre penalty at Alan McGregor, which was tremendously saved. And that seems to be the story of the game. Is, you know, Celtic had their chances, but didn't quite have the confidence to finish. Did you hear much the same, Andrew?
No, I watched half of it, but there was a chance where Welsh had a chance. Like, the ball got swung in, ball fell to Welsh's feet, and all he had to do was tap it in, but he's just tapped it the totally wrong direction.
See, the way you said that,
off the line.
Andrew, is you said the ball's come into his feet. All he had to do was hit it in the correct direction as it got in. If you're a perfectly competent footballer, that would be fine.
If once you see it, it looks easier to put in the general direction of the goal than the way they actually put it. But it wasn't just him, because there were still chances from the majority of Celtic players and they just couldn't finish.
I think it's a mentality thing, isn't it? That they've just really not been winners this season.
No,
Rangers have had that mentality, and that showed.
Yeah, because especially like if you consider their 40 shots against Falkirk and they only scored 3 of them, it's a bit worrying. Considering that coming from a bigger team, because if we played Rangers on that day, I reckon they'd take about 9 or 10, and I'm not even kidding.
Well, ironically, they played, I think, Cove Rangers at the same time and put 4 past them in the first half.
The second half they just went, we'll just be nice.
Yeah, but you can do that though. Once you've put 4 past them in the first half,
yeah,
you can put Scott Wright on, for example. I think he actually started that game, by the way. Yeah, I think if Eddie Howe was at home watching that game, he'll be thinking, no. I am Ofsky. I am not touching this with a barge pole. You can get whoever you want to next season, but it ain't going to be me.
It is a total rebuild.
Yeah, that's a whole new starting 11, let's be honest.
We've said that. So Celtic missed their last chance. Their season is over. They've gone from a treble to nothing. And a pretty miserable season, and a long season or two ahead whilst they rebuild there. Did you catch any of the other Scottish Cup matches at all then, John?
1 or 2. I've seen a lot of the highlights for the other games. I watched sort of in and out of the Stranraer Hibs game earlier on today, or Sunday if you're listening later. Again, Hibs kind of did the job. I think Stranraer were dead on their feet pretty early on. I think that was their 4th game in about a week, which was outrageous.
They were saying something mental about like Clyde having like nigh on like 10 games in a fortnight. I was going like,
they've got so many games to kind of catch up, and the Scottish Cup on top of it as well. So a lot of League One teams have been they've kind of been done really for their own success in the cup, and they've had to kind of carry over in a few extra games. But Hibs were kind of comfortable.
Did Darryl Duffy feature much at the coverage at all?
He did play. I don't know if he lasted the full 90 minutes. I kind of turned off because the game was done.
Yeah.
But he was there. Like I say, Hibs were comfortable. I thought Christian Doidge, for some bizarre reason, every time you see him, you think he's not very good, but he still gets goals, and it's really, really frustrating because I just want to sit and slate the guy. But he just comes up with the goods every time.
He's interesting because you look at his stats, and his career stats are awful. Like, he's just not scored many goals in any good leagues at all. And he has all of a sudden found quite a lot of success at Hibernian. But Hibs are always just really good at feeding strikers, I find, for some reason. Like, they always have this one talisman. Because he's quite slow, for instance. He's not, like, physically great.
He doesn't look like a football player. Like, he's a bit kind of lanky. He doesn't really have any kind of great pace to him. But for some unknown reason, particularly against smaller teams, he just finds himself in the right place at the right time. It's probably helped that he's got, like, sort of Martin Boyle on one side and Kevin Nisbet on the other.
They are pretty. It's great. I do appreciate Martin Boyle. Just he's got pace, so he looks good in the Scottish
leagues. Better than everyone else.
I think he's kind of found his level in the career. But I spent what felt like 4 hours on Saturday watching Aberdeen scrape and crawl and grind and like rub sandpaper against their faces to get past Livingston Football Club. Now, a lot of people pointed out when this was picked for the TV schedules that these are 2 teams playing badly. Livingston having not done very well since their Scottish Cup loss, and Aberdeen. Aberdeen.
Haven't been very good.
Haven't been very good since the sort of turn of the year. So, Stephen Glass's first game, it was interesting to see how they went. And of course, he wants to play beautiful football. The first thing I noticed about this actually was they were always playing out from the goalkeeper from the back. So you know how if you're playing FIFA, you never really want to punt the ball because you always know you're going to lose it because just heading in that game is difficult. So you always pass it to the nearest defender. That's exactly what they were doing. However, Mr. Thomas or Tommy Hoban, I don't think has received a football like that in the 10 years he's been playing football. And the massive issue they had. The commentators didn't really mention it until the second half, but they were playing into the sun the first half, which I thought was daft, because if you're going to pick which end you're going into, the sun's going to set as the game goes on, so you pick the opposite end, but obviously superstition. And yeah, Aberdeen had nothing in between the defence and the midfield. So the defenders kept getting caught out. Livingston kept harassing them. And that's kind of how the first goal came about. That J. Emmanuel Thomas is a tank, by the way. He's like Uche Ekpeso, but much skinnier and much more effective.
Apart from when he falls over.
I actually kind of don't blame him for that. He actually looked really guilty about the penalty decision later on. But Aberdeen struggled on. The midfielders, whilst trying their best, were just nowhere. And I think the only place Aberdeen really looks strong is down the left-hand side. They had Johnny Hayes and Matty Kennedy, who are two incredibly similar players in that they're both kind of full-backy players. Kennedy was playing up the pitch. They're both quite pacey. But when they were like overlapping each other, they were getting great crosses in the box and things like that, and there's nothing through the middle. They need better holding midfielders than they currently have, because I think Ferguson in a holding midfield role is just too deep. He needs to be further up the park. Dean Campbell is probably a bit young to play that holding midfielder role. You need someone experienced. You need that sort of Harkins, Latipe, Mark Kerr sort of type of player. That's experienced to know what they're going to do with it. So there's a bit of work to be done if that's the football they want to play. Took it to extra time, took it to penalties, held their nerve in the penalties. I think they barely raised the ball at all when they took their penalties, Aberdeen, which suggests to me they're not particularly confident in their striking ability still. Jason Holt striking it off the bar. I think Jason Holt's actually done a terrific job there. Though, and he's
to get Livingston out of the cup.
Well, no, but just in, like what he's done at Livingston, I actually want him to put him on a list of bad Rangers players who have turned out good versus bad Rangers players that turned out bad. Andy Halliday's mainly the one I'm thinking out there. So yeah,
Martin Waghorn.
He did all right at Derby, didn't he?
He did not bad once he left.
There we go. So we'll a list to come at some time in the near future. But a lot of work to do for Stephen Glass. There needs to be a lot of confidence rebuilt at Aberdeen, It's good to see them score 2 goals and Florian Kamberi getting his first goal in the time there. He actually looks like a classy striker, but it just
looks like he can't be arsed.
He does look very relaxed.
It's pathetic.
I know. So
he looked. To be honest, we're kind of going to like his kind of like the twins later on, but he looks like one of the kind of realtors at $1 million listings in New York. It's freaky as anything when you watch it.
I can see the sort of jawline and things. I don't think they would be very good if they switched roles with each job.
No,
for a week, not so much. But yeah, happy to see Aberdeen go through. Do I think they've got any chance further on in the competition? No. Who do they play?
It's Dundee United at home next round. That's the only tie I know, by the way. So don't expect me.
Yeah, I think I know the other ones. I think it's the Rangers.
Rangers St Johnstone.
Rangers St Johnstone, and then Kilmarnock will play St Mirren. Then yes, Kilmarnock will play St Mirren.
There's another tie in there somewhere. Hibs and somebody.
We'll figure it out. Dundee United, I think they only beat 4-1 1-0, didn't they?
In the end, again, it was another kind of game I was kind of flicking in and out of. Broadly speaking, again, they've done the job they needed to do.
Yeah.
It could have been maybe 2 or 3. Most of their shots kind of came from outside the box. I don't know whether that was a sort of they just couldn't be bothered kind of taking that kind of final pass to try and make the breakthrough, or Mickey Mellon had basically told them effectively shoot on sight as soon as you're in that kind of range. Take it, see what happens.
He's been linked with Doncaster in recent weeks, and I was just looking at the look at his face going, we can't get a goal across Forfar. I am packing my bags. I am here, boys.
It's payday.
Shankland is not playing well and not scoring goals. It's over. That's it.
He'll do well down in Doncaster.
Yeah, there you go. Meanwhile, the ever-present Peter Pollitt scoring his first goal in a long time. If you want a look-alike for Peter Pollitt, by the way, look up Florian Thauvin, who was a former Marseille player. Played for some team in England, but I don't really recall.
We'll gloss over that as well. Useless, man.
But they could be great twins for a switch. Although I think Tauvin's a little bit shorter.
I'm better.
Well, Andrew, You know, you not remember the Peter Pawlett baby chants of Aberdeen's League Cup triumph?
See, that was all well and good, but until he went down England, came back up, the first game that I saw him play, he was barely recognisable because of the amount of weight he put on.
It's just bulking up. It's fine. It's fine.
But I was shocked because I expected him to be like quite quick and stuff like that. None of that. Nope.
He was interesting because I was reading up on his Wikipedia profile today because I was like, I knew he had his stint at MK Dons and things and did all right, but he went out on loan to St Johnstone and then Aberdeen sold Ryan Fraser. So he was recalled to replace Ryan Fraser, and you know when you like compare like for like and you're like, yep, those two careers went two different ways. But yeah, elsewhere, Kilmarnock breezed by
Montrose.
Did you see those highlights?
I have, yep. Again, Montrose were kind of dead in their feet.
They had 3 or 4 absolutely blindingly good chances. And I have never seen worse ball control in front of a net. Like, one of the boys literally dragged it away from his foot, away from the goal. And there was a few... And the goal that they did score, it was like at long last. That game could have easily been 3-3. So they...
I think Kilmarnock look good going forward, but they're horrible at the back.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a case of like, can they outscore their opponent? You kind of seen that last week in the kind of Ross County game. Mikel Lafferty and Burke up front.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have plenty of goals in them.
Mm-hmm.
They're just hopeless everywhere else in the park.
Well, I thought Montrose, if they had any finishing, which I know is a problem in the Scottish lower leagues, but we'll get to that, I'm sure. St Mirren against Inverness Cali was a pretty juicy game, I thought, actually. Nikolai Chodorov scored again, I think, didn't he?
Oh,
the boy's got like 4 goals in his last 5 games. Unbelievable.
I never rated him.
Well, he scored 4 goals in
I
his
still
last
don't
5
rate him.
games. Well, he scored 4 goals in his last 5 games. So Neil McCann... Actually, I do wonder if Neil McCann's finding a little bit too much from his Inverness Cali team at the moment, to the point that they might not need John Robertson to return. I don't know.
Oh, give it time.
But I thought they were unlucky against St Mirren. Had a lot of good chances, but St Mirren on another fantastic cup run with Jim Goodwin, who broke SPFL disciplinary rule note 203 and was on the sidelines. Although banning someone to the stands at the moment, I feel like is a little bit redundant because everyone else is in the stand anyway.
You can bark orders from like 3 or 4 rows up.
Oh, yeah.
You should be banishing them to the car park.
It's exactly the same deal. What else was interesting about that game? Scott Allen plays with Inverness Caledonians, doesn't he?
Yes, I think he's actually on loan from Hibs. He was kind of struggling to get into that team.
That's a belting.
It's kind of weird now when you consider that Jason Cummings is at Dundee and Scott Allen is at Inverness, when at a time they were like the 2 kind of hot prospects in Scottish football.
Yeah.
Really kind of bizarre that they're still kind of mucking about in the Championship.
I don't understand how these things work sometimes, because these guys go away, come back, and they all of a sudden, as you say, just drop 1 or 2 levels. Like Simon Murray, when he was at Hibs, I thought was a fantastic striker. And even at Dundee United, fantastic striker. He leaves to South Africa, comes back, and all of a sudden he's playing for Queen's Park. Like
Queen's Park. I hate their away top. Their away top just annoys me.
Oh,
I hate both tops.
I looked at it the other day. I was like, I'd see if it was a little bit more blue and orange and a little bit less multicoloured. I think it would be really cool.
I just don't like it. It just annoys me.
There's a lot they could do with that Iron Brew sponsorship, I think, and that's what the away kit's kind of leaning towards.
They're the home and away top, like based on like normal and diet Iron Brew.
The problem is you can't really do that with a home top because it's the traditional. It's always going to be the black and white hoops, isn't it?
Black and silver, that's fine.
Yeah. You could have some orange accents to it or something. Special edition can. Yeah, I'm on board.
Like extra large.
Well, if you were drinking that much Diet Iron Brew, who knows? You'll see over my shoulder. Oh no, that shoulder. Hey, oh,
there you go.
Hey. Sugar, hello.
Was it worth it?
Yeah, totally worth it. Aberdeen away kit. How much did it cost me?
£20.
£15.
15?
15.
Oh.
So originally I was only going to get the away kit because I was like 15 quid, basically cheaper than a t-shirt at this point, might as well. And then of course you get to the cart and it's like, oh, if you spend £40 you get free delivery. I'm like, oh well, we can't be not having free, because it was going to be £6. I was like, sod that, I'm not paying £6. So that's why the home jersey turned up, John.
I thought the home jersey was £15 as well.
The home jersey is £15, so that takes me to...
So where's the 10?
The 10 comes from the away shorts. That's essentially what
You got the away shorts?
I need...
No kit, you know what?
I don't have the socks.
Yet.
Well, that's the thing. I only bought the shorts because I needed like I go running and stuff, so I just use football shorts to go running. But you always make sure, because I've got like Paris Saint-Germain shorts, and you could never go running in the PSG top and the PSG shorts because it looks like you've been too much of a tryhard. Similarly with the Aberdeen ones as well, because I've got last year's away home and away shorts as well. I suppose
I'm trying not to judge. Like,
here, black shorts, could have done with them. As long as they're not worn at the same time, you don't look like a tryhard. When was the last time you bought adult football shorts, out of curiosity?
it wasn't that long ago.
5-6 years ago.
5-6 years ago, John. How long?
I bought them last summer because my flat was unbearably hot. That is the best thing to kind of sleep in.
Right.
So I got a pair of Roma home, I think they were for the home kit. £8, like, brilliant.
Yeah.
Easy to sleep in.
See, I think they're missing a trick here, John, with these mystery shirt boxes. Do you see where I'm going with this here? Why have... Sorry, John, what are you saying?
Mystery short box.
Oh, a mystery short box.
It's only about that size.
Yes! Can you imagine? There must be so much overstock of shorts, like, everywhere. Do it for half the price.
Out of everything as well. I mean, shorts and socks in particular must be just flying everywhere. Like.
Yes, and we could call it half kit bleep instead of full kit. Just get the shorts and the socks. Who needs the top? There you go. Anyway, where were we? Scottish Cup games. I think we pretty much covered them all, didn't we?
Yeah, pretty much.
St Johnstone beat Clyde with basically the same team that they had in 2014. They talked a lot about Stevie May and Michael Ireland. League One fixtures were on this weekend for the losers that were punted out the cup. Falkirk are just about leading the league. No more.
You can hear the ball crash through here. Like.
Yeah.
And what are they going into the split next week or the week after?
Next week.
So,
final
got
fixture.
the 2 games this week and then a split.
So every game becomes a 6-pointer. A 6-pointer? Yes, a 6-pointer. At this point,
Yep.
they're deadly rivals, Cove Rangers. Andrew, you were tuned into the stream, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
What did you make of M&M's team's performance? Has anyone called them
M&M's? Yep, plenty of times. I think, especially with like even the Falkirk like fan page, like if they win one week, everyone's like, "Oh, brilliant, lad. As soon as they lose, get them out, get them sacked." But they decided to change the formation against Cove Rangers. So we usually play the sort of like 4-2-3-1 or 4-4-2. It depends. But there was just such a disconnect. And then every time Cove got the ball, 5A shooting it left and right. I can't really name a Falkirk player that can do that for us now. The 2 strikers, McAllister, is it Megison?
Mitch Megginson. Yep.
Ridiculous, old-fashioned. They can score. That's it. There's nothing fancy with it, and it's just brilliant to watch. But I think we can run against the run of play. But tactically, we played 3 at the back, 2 youngsters next to Durnan, and Durnan is a liability. So we put two youngsters next to Durnan, which you've not really got an insurance package in there. And then there was no midfield, and I still to this day, Connor Salmon, I don't know. I really don't, because every single time in the commentary, they're always talking about, oh, what a career the man had. Oh, he went for 500,000 here. For a man that's 6'2", I've never seen him win a header. And they always talk about his aerial threat.
He gets smaller when he jumps.
It's ridiculous. But I think in terms of tactically, there was nothing for Falkirk there because we never had Telfer, who's probably been our best player since we returned by a country mile. And in terms of like, without Telfer, Alston can't get in the game, so it's null and void. But overall, I think we're in trouble. Big bother.
Yeah, we look doomed, to be honest. This is like the scariest bit for me in that, particularly that kind of, whatever it was, sort of 3-5 and a Haddy up front, was putting, certainly Kai Fotheringham at left wing back was shocking, and then having Cal Morrison as the kind of only attacking threat we have in that team as right wing back, and the two of them were pinned that far back because there was literally nothing kind of sticking in the midfield as you were playing five at the back with these two wing backs, two young guys kind of trying to cover the centre back while Mark Dunnan tries not to get himself sent off. That is shocking. That the fact that we went that defensive in the first place is just embarrassing. I mean, like, with all due respect to Cove, Falkirk are a bigger team, and that squad should be a lot better than it is. So they should be going out there, and they should be going out to have a go and be more attacking, be 4-4-2, push it a little bit further, and actually have your two attacking players on the sides fucking playing in the right positions. This is madness. It just makes no sense why they're doing that. The pair of them should go, honestly. They should be sacked at half time. It's just ridiculous.
No, but this is where you start to get the disconnect, because you've got all the Falkirk fans are going to call for them to go. Who are you going to get in for the last month? Oh, Gary Holt.
Honestly, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter because it would just be better. Right? It can't get any worse. You have to admit it cannot get any worse. Like, the next thing they're going to do is have Connor Salmon playing as a centre back because he's 6'2" and allegedly can jump. And that's where we're at. Like,
but the problem is, like, they sometimes try to get him to drop in. And I think with a player that drops in, if you're going to get him to drop in, he needs to have a first touch. But in terms of if you watched him, like tomorrow, playing for Falkirk, you would be very surprised that he's played for the professional teams he's played for. Because his first touch is gone. And then once you reach a certain age, you need to try and change your play, which, I mean, I don't know what type of play he's ever had. However, he's good for comedy factor. But I think against Clyde, about one weekend ago, he put himself about and Falkirk fans thought that was great, but he didn't do anything positive. So
the Clyde game, we actually came out and we had a bit of a go at them as well. Clyde weren't great, but we had a lot more of the ball. We looked a lot more attacking.
That's because we played the formation that we've played the majority of the season. Exactly. Last time we beat Cove, we played that formation, but we decided, let's reinvent the wheel and play the two best attacking players closer to the defence.
I reckon somewhere around kind of like fourth or the bottle crashed, and they immediately decided we're going back to like a back five and just sell to the defensive ball, try and get the point and come back down the road again. Like, they'll do the same against Peterhead. Like,
they're in trouble against Dumbarton. I think Dumbarton, is it Dumbarton the next game?
I know it's Peterhead on Saturday. I don't know if they've got a midweek.
So Dumbarton on Tuesday, and the way they played against Aberdeen, they've kept that form going, which is actually not bad.
Are you looking up at your club calendar on your wall there, Andrew?
I am, yes. It's the April, the finest Blair Alston up there. However, the only thing I've actually seen him do well since we came back are free kicks. But overall, I think in terms of Partick have got momentum, Cove have got momentum, Falkirk currently don't. So it's ours to lose, but I think they've got to wake up quite quickly, but we'll find out.
So do you perhaps think if the split wasn't in place, they would have had a better opportunity to win the league, as opposed to playing all these informed teams who are chasing them down, who are hungry for the league, instead of what would have otherwise been?
Yeah, because I think Partick have got a bigger squad than us, and they didn't really have any good strikers, but then Rudden started to score for them recently.
Oh, aye. Forgot about him.
Airdrie, in terms of watching them, they've got a much better way of playing football. It's a lot more interesting to watch. And then in terms of Cove, once we play them again, if we do the five at the back thing again, we're literally just shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yeah, because we will get beat.
Yeah. But I'm not a huge fan of like the Hall-Durnan partnership, but overall, with the four at the back, we're just better. They might as well just keep it classic because they're not really, at this point, I imagine Lee Miller's just kind of the face of the partnership, and McCracken does fitness, and that's all I can really see from them.
The two of them are well at their depth, like in the way Falkirk are going. The two of them are going to like drag us down to the level they should be like starting at. I mean, they're burning sort of goodwill that they had as players, and if they've got any sense, they would just kind of gracefully walk away from it.
I mean, I still feel that people are being a bit harsh on them in terms of we are still top of the league.
They're still rank rotten though. I mean,
But then people are saying we've got a bigger budget than
top.
Partick, which look at the players Partick have compared to us. They're
Spending better.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we've got Salmon, they've got Ricky Foster. So again, if you're looking at an experienced head, they've got a better one than we do.
Yeah.
So, and then I think over the past few seasons, you've seen the sort of, I want to call it the enforcer role, but not really, because you've got, like, we had Paul Payton went, we got Miller in, Gary Miller came in just to do that role. But again, he's there for the experience, and again, it just seems to be how it goes. But I'm not a particular fan of how they played, but I think if I was to predict it now, I want to say Falkirk, but I genuinely think it's the next game, if we don't win it, it's going to be between Cove and Partick.
Well, that was a positive and cheery conversation between John and Andrew there. I have plenty of highlight clips to come from that, particularly from John's end of things and from Andrew's as well, that will make them very popular season ticket holders with the club next season. I mean, the majority of the Falkirk fan base do say the exact same. Yeah. I think there was one person that said they were a Premiership team, and he did get torn apart for that because we're not a Premiership team.
No. It's not good. Not good at all.
I actually think we need to have a chat on here some week about football forums in particular. I think that would make for quite a juicy topic. But we shall save that for another day. We shall keep an eye on Falkirk's progress, and I think we'll have a very juicy season review show in a few weeks' time. So do stay tuned for that. And if you want to keep your fingers crossed for them not winning the league, I would do that, because I think it would make for an extremely juicy end of year season review. But what we'll do now, do we want a theme tune for Cage Match?
Nah, we'll just jump in there.
Right, okay. Here's John with our first Cage Match face-off? Face-off, yes.
Yeah, face-off fixture, what you want to call
Hand
it.
it over to you, John.
So, as it kind of went last week, kind of not well, but anyway, we'll gloss over that. What we've kind of done is I've kind of arranged all the teams. We now have kind of 8 teams featuring 3 superstar players from across the world. And what we're going to do is I've kind of put them in sort of different teams, and what we're going to do is kind of argue out or kind of discuss which team would kind of win in a cage match or a 3v3 based on their sort of their skills, their abilities, who would be better in what position against the 2 teams. So the first team I have called Los Leões, or the Lions, as we know in English.
I would have said Leos. Would you not say Leos?
Leos is Portuguese, I think.
I would say Portuguese.
In honour of the striker of this particular team, which is Neymar. The midfielder being Luka Modric, and defender being Virgil van Dijk. So that makes up that team.
But Neymar's Brazilian.
And they speak Portuguese.
Okay. Okay. So we've got Van Dijk, Modric and Neymar against...
They are going against Carnaval de Samba. Like, all good fun there. That team comprises of Marcelo as the kind of defender, Paul Pogba and Eden Hazard.
So these are the good fun bunch in your own words.
These are the kind of guys that got a bit more kind of swagger. Particularly Marcelo. I'll be calling, like, well, to be fair, like, the biggest thing with Carnaval de Samba is that you've got both Marcelo and Paul Pogba.
We'll go with
okay,
that.
so you're in for the dancing, right? We'll go with that.
So you take the 2 teams. Who do you think would kind of win out of that in a kind of cage match?
Modric, Neymar, and Van Dijk.
Van Dijk is your centre back or your defender in the circumstance.
Well, bear in mind, Van Dijk's in a 3-on-3 match. You're not going to be playing this on a full 11-size pitch. This is quite small. You get to be quite nimble, quite agile.
You're basically playing this in the cages at Oco View,
that'll really hit home with our listeners, John.
Well, everybody kind of plays like fives. Like, this is the kind of thing. Like,
this is true.
But these kind of like proper kind of like these kind of players on that kind of pitch, like.
I mean,
I think you're looking at, do you want a team that's kind of full like defenders, or do you look at a team that's kind of like more kind of like skillful, that you kind of get like Marcelo, Pogba, and Eden Hazard, or you're looking for a bit more kind of brunt force really certainly with Van Dijk as your kind of defender. Looking at Luka Modric as the kind of playmaker in that team, and obviously Neymar's just got all the skills.
See, I'd be inclined to side with Leos or Loes. I can't remember what he said. Because Modric, again, would fulfill your sort of Latipe role. Like, he doesn't move very much, but he can like flick it at impossible angles. He could bounce it off. He's like do they call him a magician or mathematician? I feel somewhere he's called
a mathematician.
A mathematician. Like, he's calculating.
He's looking at all the angles.
Yeah, he's looking at all the passes. Like, he can see these things in his head. I mean, Neymar's just Neymar. He'd be having an absolute laugh. And Van Dijk is in JD Sports adverts, which means he's cool and urban and therefore would be good at indoor football like this.
Very kind of hipster.
Yes, because people that shop at JD Sports are cool. Buy your football shorts there now.
Yeah, when I put them together, I tend to agree. I mean, I think Marcelo has always had such a fantastic career, and he is that kind of player as well. I mean, like, all Brazilians are like that. It's the kind of futsal type of players. I'd love to see him playing like the 10 and 6s. I think that would be funny as anything if that ever came back.
Well, like,
just like a kind of like they used to do like the Masters tournaments.
Yeah.
Do you remember
like Marcelo eventually will end up in that kind of thing?
Did they not do like beach football at the Brazilian Olympics a few years back?
I'm sure there's like beach futsal and stuff like that.
See, it's brilliant to watch. It'd be great to see that. If that was the European Super League, I'd be tuned in. This is where they've gone wrong in the format, is it should be just 3-on-3 like this.
Nah, but I think even like the goalkeeping rules are weird in that. Like, they don't really play as goalkeepers. There's no gloves, and then it's weird.
Well, it's football, Andrew. It'd be silly to use your hands.
Oh yeah, well, but goalkeepers. That's what I said.
Yeah, but that
like it's like high school. It's just like school rules, just like any money. Just
whoever's closest. Aye, that rule was always a bit controversial. I've just put away the document. I do think though that Pogba and Hazard are very interesting candidates for our twins that could switch places with their other siblings, because Paul Pogba, notoriously related to Matthias Pogba.
Matthias.
Now, can you imagine Paul Pogba at Partick Thistle during the brief period? Like, he would, in the SPFL, I think he would be a world beater. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, a little bit, and then like some kind of jobber would wipe him out though after like.
All he could swap was. Has he not got another brother? Saint Etienne or something?
He's the better brother, but he's better than Matthias was.
Yes, but Matthias was useless.
Yes. Although what is ironic, because that boy Keon played at Partick Thistle for a while, who's Martin Keon's son.
Yeah.
So he couldn't have wiped out Pogba, but I imagine his dad might have done such a thing. And then Eden and Thorgan Hazard as well.
Yeah. But it's almost actually got to the point where the two of them have kind of like, Thorgan is maybe now slightly the better player than what Eden Hazard is, given that Hazard's just doesn't seem to have disappeared.
Well, on your notes here, you've put, ignore his Real record. 25 appearances since 2019. Yeah, that's crazy. He's just dropped off the face of the planet. Like,
so apparently he's proper lazy though. Like, in terms of like, that's what I think John Terry, like, kind of interview with Talk Sport, said that he'd never do anything in training, but on a Saturday you just knew what he could do in the space of like, there was always like a 20-minute period where he just dominated.
But Pogba's a lot like that as well, isn't he?
But I think I can't really tell you a time where I've thought like Pogba really changed. Like, he's come on and changed games, but he'd never like done it off his own back. But do you remember back to the Chelsea Tottenham game for Leicester to win the league? Mm-hmm. And then Tottenham were dominating that, and I think Hazard was the only useful Chelsea player in that, but he just turned it on for 20 minutes. He scored, was it 2 goals? 1 or 2 goals, but
at least one. And that's
again, he just dominated. But I mean, I don't like Pogba personally, but I mean,
as a footballer, he's fine, but I wouldn't go for a beer with him.
As a person. No.
Bonjour, Paul. Ça va? Ah, ça va bien, merci. Adoro.
You could sing his mad. What was it? The French Euro song.
You
ever heard
no,
that?
But can you sing it to us now, Andrew, please?
Yeah, go off a rendition of that.
It's like a full like sort of rap, and then basically it just randomly comes up with different French players. Really? So like you've got like the Kimpembe bit and N'Golo Kante, and like he just names every single player.
That's very clever.
But they did like. Have you not seen them like walking around the stadium? So like they walk around the stadium, the guy does the rap, and you've got them all dancing. Oh, it's cringy, but I bet it was fantastic in the French.
Is it any more cringy than I don't know what the rapper is. They got a random guy out of the crowd with Thiago Silva on his back to sing his song for him.
Oh, Dave!
Yeah, horrendous. That is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Good.
You cannot
imagine paying the money to get some random guy out of the crowd to sing your song. It's just
You didn't pay the guy. The guy was there at the concert wearing the PSG top with Thiago Silva on the back.
You've paid hundreds of pounds to go to Glastonbury, and then some random guy comes out of the crowd to sing one of like the kind of better songs that this guy's got.
In a PSG top with Thiago Silva, you name me how many people in the UK have a Thiago Silva top. Well, not now.
I thought have you not got one?
Not that's got Thiago Silva on the back.
No. So what was it? The song was called
Thiago's
Ramènes la coupe à la maison by Veggie Dream.
That was a very good French accent.
I'm not French.
So we've actually got like a fair amount of talking points for all 6 of these footballers, but not necessarily about their footballing abilities.
No, that doesn't matter. That's part of the thing. It's just to chat about them.
Yeah, but if you put like them up, like do it the old-fashioned way, like 1v1. So like basically like they're on each other for the full time. You'll put Pogba and Van Dijk. You'll then put probably Modric on Hazard, and then Marcelo and Neymar. Because I think every single time that's sort of a 60-40.
Is Marcelo still at Real Madrid?
Yeah, he's played for an
final season, I think. Because I know Dani Alves is away back to Sao Paulo.
Who's replaced Marcelo in the team? Like
Mendy.
Oh yeah, he likes Mendy. I don't know what the hype of Mendy is. Because Man City said
he's one of the worst. He's one of the best players on FIFA. Like in terms of if you have any players in FIFA, it's Varane and Mendy.
I don't know. I haven't played it since FIFA 16 when I snapped the disc, so I will never ever go back.
You probably shouldn't.
No, definitely not. I would say it was like wasn't an anger. It was just disappointment. It's like I know I'm not good at this game anymore, so I snapped.
How could you not do it in anger? You're just so disappointed. You know what? I'm going to take this out and snap it.
I smashed the controller, and then all was left was the disc. And at that point, it was just disappointment. The R2 button was hanging off. The kind of one of the joysticks was a bit kind of mangled, but yeah, never mind. There's an ever so slight dent in the kind of wardrobe when it hit.
Deary me. Oh well, so I think, are you in agreement that Osleos win this week as well, John?
Yes, I would definitely go with that.
So they advance to the next round, the next bracket. Next week's one is an interesting one. I've just had a flick down the list. And there'll be a lot to talk about there, that's for sure. For better or for worse.
Yeah, I think that.
Do you want to just give us the team names for next week as opposed to the actual players?
I won't disclose the names. So the first team's called Ragnarok, which is in reference to the striker for one of the teams. Okay. And the other one's called Los Piratas because the defender in a former life, I am convinced, was a pirate.
I can see that. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Once you know who it is, you'll be like, yeah, definitely.
Do you know what? Comment in if you think you know who's John referring to as a pirate, essentially.
Former defender who looks like a pirate.
And the person that he's named Ragnarok after. Sadly, it's not Christopher Ayer, who I do believe is of the calibre to be in this competition.
Yeah. Or El Yunusi.
I know, yeah, a lot of Norwegians. They could have made a whole Norway 3 that would have been worth arguing for.
Yeah.
But anyway, I see my timer ticking over to just over an hour there, so that usually signals full time. So yeah, thank you very much. Next week we'll be talking more Scottish football. There might be more Falkirk news, back to league fixtures, looking at the infamous League One split, and maybe talking about football forums. Yet we've not yet decided. So thank you very much for listening from myself, Paul.
Cheers, guys. All the best.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't nod, Andrew. This is an audio podcast as well. That's useless to us. And have a good evening, a good afternoon, and a good morning. Goodbye.
Bye.